To her mind, marriage was something to be avoided. Her friends told her she was simply jaded from handling too many nasty divorces, and while she couldn't deny that, she could list on the fingers of one hand the number of successful marriages she'd seen. Her friend and business partner Maddie Maddox had one, though only after recovering from a lousy first marriage, and her other friend and partner, Dana Sue Sullivan, had recently reunited with her ex, and even to Helen's cynical eye, it looked as if this time things would last for her and Ronnie. Brad wasn't always that way, Carolyn told her, a faintly nostalgic expression in her eyes. When we met, he was thoughtful and considerate. He was a great dad, a terrific provider, and until a few months ago, I'd have said we had a solid marriage. Helen had heard the rest before, or some version of it. Brad had had a brush with prostate cancer that had threatened his virility. After that, he'd lost his grip on reality. All he could think about was proving he was still a man, and he did that by sleeping with a succession of younger women, never mind that a real man would have stuck by the family who'd stayed by his side during his treatment and recovery. By the time Helen left the courthouse, she felt even more cynical than usual. She would have given anything to head to the corner spa, the business she'd started with Maddie and Dana Sue, and spend an hour working out. But she knew she had a full schedule back at the office. Normally, a jam-packed calendar would have reassured her, but lately she'd begun to wonder what she was working so hard to accomplish. She had professional success, she had money in the bank, quite a lot of it, in fact, and she had a lovely home in serenity she rarely had time to enjoy. She had good friends, but the family she'd once envisioned for herself had never materialized. Instead, she played doting surrogate aunt to Maddie's children, Tyler, Kyle, Katie, and Jessica Lynn, and to Dana Sue's daughter, Annie. It was her own fault, she knew. She'd always been too driven, too dedicated to the clients depending on her to take the time for the kind of serious dating that might actually lead to a relationship and marriage. And as the divorces had piled up in her caseload, she'd grown less and less enchanted with the idea of risking her own heart, especially on something that came with no guarantees. When she reached her office, a small cottage on a side street near downtown Serenity, her secretary handed her a thick stack of message slips and nodded toward her office. Barb Dixon was almost 60 and unapologetically gray-haired, and she'd come to work for Helen the day she'd opened the office. A widow who'd raised 3 sons on her own and gotten all of them through college, Barb was endlessly patient and compassionate with the clients, and fiercely loyal to Helen. She also felt it was her right and duty to take Helen to task from time to time, which made her one of the few people on Earth who dared. "Your 2 o'clock's been waiting in your office for an hour," she chided. "Your 3 o'clock will be here any second." Helen glanced over Barb's shoulder at the calendar the woman maintained with careful detail, instinctively knowing when to allow extra time for a client and when to keep the appointment to a 15-minute session that wouldn't try Helen's patience. "Karen Ames?" Helen questioned. "She works for Dana Sue at Sullivan's. What's she doing here?" "She didn't tell me, just said it was urgent she speak with you. You had a cancellation for this afternoon, so I called her yesterday and confirmed her for that slot. If you can keep it short, maybe you can catch up a little." "Okay then, let me get started. Apologize to Mrs. Hendricks when she gets here. Give her a cup of tea and some of those cookies from Sullivan's. She'll say she's on a diet, but I know better. I caught her diving into a strawberry sundae at Wharton's the other day." Barb nodded. "Done." Helen stepped into her office with its antique furniture and pale peach walls. Karen was seated on the edge of a guest chair, nervously biting her nails. Her blonde hair pulled back into a ponytail that emphasized her fragile cheekbones and large blue eyes. She didn't look much older than a teenager, though she was, in fact, in her late 20s with 2 very young children at home. "I'm so sorry I kept you waiting, Karen," Helen said. "My court case didn't start on time."